Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to fight Old School's newest boss, Nex. Keep in mind, this is a day 1 guide, so things may change and theories may be proven wrong, despite over 10 hours of research and hours of trying the boss myself. So be sure to check the pinned comment below where I'll post any changes. So first off, you'll need to be able to access God War's dungeon. The best way is by using Gommel's Hilt 3 from the Hard Combat Achievement Diaries, as it will instantly teleport you to the God War's boulder as many times as you want. If this is your first time going to God Wars, make sure to bring a rope so you can climb down. If you don't have Gommel's Hilt 3, there's a few other methods you can use to get there on screen now. Okay, now that you've unlocked God Wars, you'll need to complete the Frozen Door mini quest. You'll need at least 70 strength, agility, ranged, and hit points, as well as completion of the Desert Treasure quest. You'll need to be able to reach every general's lair, so you should also bring a myth grapple and crossbow for Armadil, 2 ropes to reach Sarah Doman's encampment if you've never been there, and a Dragon Warhammer or a hammer to reach Bandos. You'll also need equipment to kill all 4 God Wars dungeon generals. Don't forget to wear items that make it so the monsters in the dungeon are non-aggressive. For example, if you wear a Bandos chestplate, no Bandos followers will attack you, but if you remove it, they'll instantly become aggressive. You need an item that represents each of the 4 gods: Bandos, Armadil, Sarah Doman, and Zamorak. Otherwise, you'll pretty much be destroyed when you enter the dungeon. In the description below, there's a link to the wiki with a list of every god item you can use. Now, this mini quest is best done in a group, because defeating all 4 on your own will be pretty difficult. If necessary, mid-quest, you can bank to get new supplies or gear, so don't worry about killing all 4 in one trip if you don't think you'll be able to do so. Every general has unique mechanics that, if explained, would triple this video's length, so I recommend watching guides on each one or reading the wiki guides. The mini quest is automatically started when a mysterious stranger hands you a letter. This should happen sometime after completing Desert Treasure. After doing so, travel to God War's dungeon and defeat each of the 4 bosses. Whoever deals the most damage to the boss should receive a frozen key piece when it dies. If you're unable to do that, the minions also drop a piece at a rate of 1 in 20. After getting a piece from each general, you combine them to make the frozen key. After doing so, you can use it to unlock the frozen door in Southern God Wars. A short cutscene explaining Nex's lore will play, and the mini quest is completed. Now that you've unlocked Nex, you're still not able to fight her. I know, it's a lot of work. Inside the ancient prison is 4 new types of foes from Nex's army. In order to continue on to Nex, you'll need to defeat enough of them to earn 40 essence. Some enemies will provide more than others. Also, depending on what tier of the combat achievement diaries you have completed, you can kill less than 40 as shown on screen now. Like the other God Wars bosses, these monsters will be aggressive to you if you're not wearing a god item. In this case, you'll need a Zeros item such as an Ancient Blessing, Ancient D'hide, and so on. Once again, there's a link to a list of every god item in the description. You can also just skip the kill count phase completely by simply using an ecumenical key. Ecumenical keys can be obtained either from killing monsters in the Wilderness God Wars dungeon or by combining 50 ecumenical key shards. Regardless of how you get through that section, you'll then enter the next room, which has a bank. So you'll be able to resupply here if you used up a lot of supplies during your fight with Nex's army. Once you're ready, simply cross through the barrier. Keep in mind you won't be able to cross back over. The only ways to leave Nex are either through dying or teleporting out. You can use the altar on the east side of the boss room to teleport out, but you'll be placed right in front of the door to the bank, so you'll want to put on a Zeros item before teleporting if you don't want to get attacked. You'll also need to have 40 ancient essence or else you won't be able to enter the bank room. If you die while fighting Nex, the item reclaim chest is actually in that first room after entering the frozen door. It will cost you 100,000 GP to reclaim your items. Just don't die again on the way there or the items in the chest will be gone forever, so be extremely careful on your way back. Okay, so let's actually gear up for Nex. T-Bow and Armadil is the absolute best in slot for Nex right now, especially if you're going to a mass. Honestly, it's enough to shred everything in the boss encounter. If you can't afford bow, then I'd recommend an Armadil crossbow or Dragon crossbow with Ruby Dragon bolts, and for your offhand, either a Twisted Buckler or Spectral Spirit Shield. The Buckler will be better for DPS, but Nex has a ton of prayer draining abilities, which is why I personally prefer the Spectral. Once you understand Nex more, you could also bring both and just swap whenever a prayer draining ability is coming up. The Bofa and Crystal Armor are another good option if you can afford them. As for inventory, I like to bring a small melee swap with a good spec weapon like Claws. In a mass, it isn't necessary, but it will help you get a lot of participation if you dump specs right at the start. Plus, one of Nex's specials requires melee attacks to free your teammate. If you plan on bringing melee gear, also bring a super combat potion. You could also bring a dark bow or armadillo crossbow for spec if you just wanted to stay in ranged gear. Some people also like to bring a mage swap such as ancestral and other magic boosting items, as there is an attack that drains your stats based on your highest attack bonus, which most of the time, if not all of the time, will be range. By equipping magic items at the right time, magic will become the highest and magic will be drained instead of range. That same attack can also be lessened by bringing a gas mask, face mask, or slayer helm, so if you have one, you should bring it. If you have access to summoning thralls on the ancient spellbook, those are also pretty strong here, so bring runes and a Book of the Dead. Now you needed a Zeros item to get in here, but you should also bring one into the encounter. First, if you use the altar to teleport out, you don't want the monsters in the ancient prison attacking you. Second, by wearing a Zeros item and praying at the altar, not only will it restore your prayer, but it'll restore your run energy, hit points, and special attack. Just like the other God Wars altars, you can also only use it every 10 minutes. As for supplies, I'd recommend 2 Divine Bastion potions, 2 normal Bastion potions, a Sandfew serum or an Antidote plus, either one works, a stamina, and then fill the rest of your inventory with food like anglers, brews, and of course, some super restores. Now that you're ready for the fight, I'll explain everything you need to know to defeat her. Nex has 5 phases: Smoke, Shadow, Blood, Ice, and Zeros. There are also 4 mages in each corner of the room that represent the first 4 phases. During the fight, Nex will use ancient magic attacks with the type depending on which phase she's in. For example, blood spells in the blood phase. She also has a standard melee attack that will hit players within melee distance. Nex can run around the room at incredible speeds, and if she's unable to attack her target for too long, she'll teleport to them. If you're in the way when she lands, you may become stunned. So when the fight first begins, Nex is invulnerable. After she finishes her paragraph of shouting at people, she'll become attackable and the smoke phase begins. Many people like to dump their specs at the beginning, so you can do that if you'd like. At this point, you should turn on Protect from Magic, as her regular attack will be the Smoke Rush spell. This phase, you can also get poisoned, so don't forget to sip your Antidote or Sandfew when needed. During this round, she can also use 3 special attacks. The first one is Choke. Next will shout, "Let the virus flow through you." One player is targeted and essentially becomes patient 0 of an infection and starts to say cough. The attack will cause damage, drain their combat stats, and drain 2 prayer points every 2 ticks. The drain stat is based on the player's highest attack bonus. So if you brought a Slayer Helm, Gas Mask, or Face Mask, be sure to toss that on now, as it slightly lessens the duration of the cough. Or if you brought a gear switch to prevent your range stat from being drained, also toss that on. Worst of all, much like Olm's burn attack, this virus will spread if patient 0 gets close to anyone, so just avoid them at all costs. But mass worlds are like grocery stores full of people who won't wear masks, so just expect to get coughed on. Now it is possible to take one for the team and control the cough. Next targets the cough attack based on who has the highest magic defense bonus. So by standing next to Umbra in the northeast corner and taking off your armor when the fight starts, you'll take the cough every time, and since you're alone over there, it should theoretically not spread to the rest of the team. Her next special attack is Drag. Nex will drag a random player towards her, stun them, and temporarily disable their prayers. Lastly, there's Smoke Bullet, where Nex will shout, "There is no escape," and sprint down one of the aisles, causing up to 50 damage to anyone who's in the way. The only way to avoid this one is by watching what aisle she stares down before she dashes, and just getting out of the way. Once Nex reaches below 80% of her hit points, she will shout, "Fumus, don't fail me." You'll need to run to the northwest corner and kill Fumus to begin the next phase. After doing so, the Shadow phase begins. Nex will shout, "Darken my shadow," and will use range damage based shadow spells, which sounds a little confusing, but a simple way to put it is, even though it looks like magic, you should pray Protect from range. If she hits you successfully, some prayer points will drain. During this phase, she has 2 specials. The first is Shadow Smash, where Nex will shout, "Fear the shadow." Shadows will appear on the floor, and you have 3 ticks to run off of them, or else you'll be dealt up to 50 damage. Next is Embrace Darkness, where Nex will shout, "Embrace Darkness." Nex will darken the chamber, and the closer you are to her, the darker it will be. Another reason not to be close to her during this is you'll take constant damage, so make sure to stand far away. Once Nex reaches below 60% of her hit points, she will shout, "Umbra, don't fail me." So now you have to kill Umbra in the northeast corner. If you haven't noticed already, the mages you have to kill go in a clockwise pattern. When the blood phase starts after killing Umbra, she shouts, "Flood my lungs with blood," which sounds kind of like an emo song from the 2010s, but hey, that's when Nex was originally launched. During this phase, she'll use Blood Blitz, so make sure to switch back to Protect from Magic. You don't want to get hit by it because not only will it take your health, it'll heal her for a percentage of the damage dealt. This phase also has two special attacks. First is Blood Siphon, where she'll shout, "A siphon will solve this." Next then spawns up to 3 Blood Reavers and kneels for 8 ticks. Make sure not to attack her at this point, as all the damage done to her will heal her. You'll also want to kill the Blood Reavers, as if she casts another siphon and they're still alive, the previous Reavers will die and will heal her for how much health they had left. Her next special is Blood Sacrifice, where she'll shout, "I demand a blood sacrifice." One player will be selected and start to glow red. That player has 4 seconds to move at least 7 tiles away from her, otherwise they'll lose 10% of their hit points, and those hit points will heal her 10 times for the damage dealt. So if you lose 5 hit points, she gains 50. All players will also have their remaining prayer points halved, so don't be the guy who fails the blood sacrifice. After Nex reaches below 40% HP, she'll say, "Cruor, don't fail me." Now you need to kill Cruor in the southwest corner of the room. After doing so, the ice phase begins. Keep Protect from Magic on, as during this phase, Nex will use Ice Barrage. This will also freeze you and lower your prayer points. Her two specials this time are Containment and Ice Prison. Containment happens when Nex shouts, "Contain this," and smashes the floor. Icicles will appear in a 4x4 area around her. If you're caught inside, you'll be damaged by up to 35 hit points and have protection prayers disabled. Her next special is Ice Prison, where Nex shouts, "Die now," in a prison of ice. She then freezes a player in a prison of icicles and disables their protection prayers. Players have to destroy the icicles around the player with a melee weapon, or else when the ice shatters, the player trapped inside will be damaged. Once Nex reaches below 20% of her hit points, she shouts, "Glacies, don't fail me." Kill Glacies in the southwest corner, and then the final phase will begin. Nex starts the Zeros phase by shouting, "Now the power of Zeros." In this phase, Nex calls on Zero's power, which will heal her for 1/6 of her HP. During the phase, she uses magic and melee attacks. Her melee attack will not only hit the primary target, but anyone around them in a 3x3 cube. Although she doesn't have any specials this round, she has several ancient curses. First is Turmoil. This lasts to the end of the fight and makes Nex's attack more accurate and powerful. It can also drain players' melee stats and transfer those stats to her. Next is Soul Split. You'll know when it's active because she'll use this overhead prayer. Nex will heal a percentage of her health for every successful hit she does on up to 3 players. Next is Deflect Melee, another overhead prayer where she'll deflect all damage the player hits her with melee attacks, meaning if you hit her a 5 with melee, it won't actually hit. Instead, you'll just be hitting yourself a 5. Last is Wrath, another overhead. She shouts, "Taste my wrath," and at this point, just stay as far away from her as you can. When she dies, every player in a 5x5 radius of her will be hit with massive damage. You have 3 seconds after her death to run away. Assuming you'll be fighting Nex in a group, you'll earn loot based on how much you actually contribute. Those who contribute the most will be more likely to receive better rewards. The player who does the best is considered the MVP. Everyone has a chance to earn one of Nex's unique items, for example, Torva, but the MVP is given a bonus chance, so you definitely want to try and be that if you can. So that's about it. Hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.